Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. I'll be one of the presenters today.
Hi, I'm Jody. I'm also going to be one of the presenters today.
Today, we're going to be learning about controllable and user interactive components in React Native. So, why isn't it working? Okay, so these are the links to the slides and the links to the README. Please go and type these out if you need to. And the link to the README will be down here as well. So the membership portal attendance code is props to you. Um, if you don't know what props are, that's okay. You'll be learning about them today. And please remember to fill out the feedback form. There will be a raffle, and we highly appreciate your feedback too.
Wait, also, can one of the officers drop the links in the chat? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So before we begin today, another reminder is that we have our beginner-friendly hackathon coming up in 2 weeks, I believe, which is February 5th to February 7th. So if you've never been in a hackathon before or you want to learn what hackathon is, it's basically just a fun competition where you and a group of people get to make a really cool project for a few days. And ours will be virtual this year, so you'll get to do it from the very own comfort of your bedroom or home or coffee shop. I don't know. But yeah, sign up for that. Signups close this coming Monday. So there are about 10-ish days or a week left, less than a week left. So definitely sign up for that. It'll be really fun. There'll be some fun prizes, some cool gift cards, because that's like the only thing people really need now. I don't know. Perhaps you'll see some dope gifts, and yeah, we'll also have fun workshops and mentorship. So if you ever need help, you'll also get that as well. So sign up for that. It should be fun.
And another announcement for Tech Gala.
Yes, and then another fun, I guess, event that not hack is not hack is not holding this. ACM, which is like the entire ACM is holding this. It's called Tech Gala. So this is basically a place where you get to show off any cool projects that you've made. So if you have a fun side project or you've made like a unique project for a class, so not like a project where like every one of the students has made the same thing, but perhaps like it was the assignment was like, oh, make something, and you and your group decide to make something. So it's like unique to you guys. You can definitely show it off at this fun event called Tech Gala. I dropped the link in the speaker notes for this specific slide. So if you go to the slides and you go to this slide in the speaker note, there's the application for that as well. And Eugene also just dropped it in the chat. So if that's something that interests you, definitely check that as well. And that'll be happening Thursday, February 11th at 6:30 p.m. in the ACM Discord. So yeah, should be pretty fun.
Okay, so for those of you who've attended our workshops before, you guys know the spiel. If you aren't already on there, please go on the Hacksprint Discord server. This is especially important to the people who signed up to be in groups because I'm going to be pairing you guys there into your group chat so you'll get to know who your partners are. Yeah, so hope to see you there. Okay, and also we have work sessions every Thursday from 6 to 7 p.m. PST over in the Hacksprint Discord. This is going to be the best interface for you guys to be talking with us officers and mentors for any questions you may have about the workshop material, or now that the groups have been created for your app help. So please feel free to take advantage of that. Okay, and last but not least, group formations have been finished. So if you have noticed on the Hacksprint Discord and you applied, you will have been placed in a group already. And if you have not, that's just because someone in your group hasn't yet joined the Discord server. So I'm waiting for them and I'm reaching out to them about that. But be assured that that'll happen soon. So yeah, if you already are in one of those groups, feel free to introduce yourself, share a little about yourself in those group chats, and if you have any questions about where to start, feel free to ask any of us officers or mentors about that. Just as a reminder, you can use the work sessions I just mentioned or the Ask Mentor channel on the Discord for asynchronous help. We'll try to get to you at any point of the day. And also feel free to show up your app progress. If you did a cool feature you implemented, feel free to put that on the Show and Tell channel on the Discord so you can hopefully encourage other people to do that as well. And as a reminder, we have our final project showcase on week 10, which is the Wednesday workshop. And this is where you'll be able to present and show off your app to everyone else and hopefully win some pretty cool prizes. So hope to see you there.
Note about questions. Please ask any questions if you are confused at any point. We are going to be, again, going pretty quick, as is with all of our workshops. So if you don't understand something, either just drop it in the chat, or if you feel like you're completely lost, just go to the README. The README has documented everything that we'll be covering this workshop. So yeah. And a note on code along. So for this workshop, we have 2 demos, and so we don't really recommend coding along for this workshop because there'll be lots of coding. If you want to see the code and go back and code it after this workshop, you can go to the README, and all the demos are in the README. Our main goal for today is to get familiar with the syntax and structure so that you can understand everything conceptually. What I'm going to be using today, this should be what I'm using today, is Expo and VS Code. So the outline for today's workshop is split into 2 parts. The first part, we're going to be learning about how to create our own custom components and something called props in React. And then in part 2, we're going to be learning something called state, and especially a React hook. Don't worry, you don't know that term yet, called use state. And then you're also going to be learning about some user interactive components such as buttons, touchable, opacity, and input text. But before that, let's do a bit of recap to what we learned last week. So last week, remember, we learned about some components and such as view, text, image, safe area view, flat list, style sheet, and icons, or such as which is an example of a third-party component. And you may think that, okay, I learned all of these different things, but how do I make an app with these? You may also remember that we could import our components like so, and then just directly use them in our code. So, oh yeah, where's scroll view? Yeah, I forgot about that. My bad. So if you're wondering how do all these components make up an app, or how do we make an app with this? Let's try to do a little bit of an exercise. Let's try to break down this Twitter page. So you open Twitter and you see your home screen or your home feed. Okay, this is what you see. What things can you see down here? So first of all, we can see that maybe our Twitter app is wrapped in some sort of safe area view, so that it doesn't intrude onto other areas of the phone, such as the status bar over here. And then we could break down this safe area view into something more specific, such as we see a navigation bar, and then we see I haven't highlighted it, but there's a little button here, a little circular button here to create your app. I didn't highlight that. And then there's the main home feed, and since we can scroll for our posts, we can maybe deduce that this could be made using some sort of flat list. No scroll view, sorry. So yeah, and if we dive deeper into the home feed, we can see that, oh, maybe this home feed is made up of different tweets. So there's a tweet 1, there's tweet 2, and there's tweet 3. And from what we can see, each tweet is independent of other tweets. This means that even if you change the content on tweet 2, or you deleted tweet 2 completely, it won't affect tweet 1 or tweet 3. And so this type of this is a way of thinking in which you can compartmentalize every tweet into its individual component, is what we're going to be learning to do today. So this is what functional components achieve. And again, we're going to be learning about functional components. So enough about that. Let's dive deeper into a tweet, right? Because a tweet is complicated. This is a lot of stuff. So what is it? What could be contained in it, right? And we see that we can have there's this block here that could be maybe a profile picture, and then there's another block here containing a header, some content for the post, and then some icons. And then we see that we can break these sections further into the basic components that we've learned about, such as an image. A profile picture can contain an image. The header contains text, and content, text, and image, and icon buttons, such as icons, right? And remember that we learned about style sheets, and so maybe we could see that this could be styled using some sort of flex box, maybe. So that's how we can break down every single app and into its really bare bones basic components, and we see that okay, so this isn't actually magic. If you open Facebook, for example, you're able to see, oh, okay, so there's a like button here, and then it's styled using some sort of flex box maybe to look like the way it does. Right, so now that we've learned about the tools to make these, such as image, icons, text, and image, and view, sorry. And we've also learned that a bit about how these things could be structured to make an app. Why don't we try to code our own Twitter then, or Twitter in this case? This is fake Twitter. Okay, okay, sorry, but the name is bad. But let's go ahead and try to code our own Twitter, right? So here I have an empty project. This is right after I did expo init. So in your terminal, you might want to do, for example, expo init footer. This is how I created my app. Note that footer could be named anything. This is just the name of it. It could be my app name. It could be anything. And I just pressed enter. I already did it, so I'm not going to do it now. But and then afterwards, it will prompt you to. Oh, can you guys see my terminal, by the way? I know this is like pretty small. So is the text size okay? Or should it be a bit bigger? Okay, thank you. So after you press enter, it will prompt you with what template you want. I picked the blank template, and then out appears this sort of screen. And this is just some auto-generated boilerplate, and the main focus of our app is this app.js file. And what do we see in this file? So we see that it automatically imports some of this stuff for us. It creates a style sheet, some text and views, and then we see a function here, export default function app, right? And then it returns some JSX, right? What does that mean? Like, what does export default function app mean? So I just want you guys to keep this in mind as we go along the workshop, and then and then we're going to be going over what this means later when we talk about creating our own components. So as we see here, I've already done expo start on this terminal, and it ran and it's running the app on my Android emulator here. And so this will be the workflow that we'll be working with this workshop. I mean, for this half of the workshop. So if we see here that if I just get rid of this text, and I click save, it will hopefully get rid of the text here. And the client, okay, no, let's pretend we didn't see that. Okay, so what do we do first? So if we go back to our slides, I'm going to go ahead and do this. So if you go back to our slides, we see that, okay, so our app is wrapped in some sort of safe area view. Let's go ahead and import safe area view. And let's change this to safe area view. Okay, that's all done. And then let's go ahead and jump into breaking this down even further. For simplicity, we're not going to be coding the navigation bar or anything. Let's just focus on the home feed, right? So we see that home feed is made up of some sort of flat list. I'm not going to be doing the flat list yet, but I am going to import it. But we don't have items in our list yet, so we can't use it. We can't do the flat list yet. So let's jump into coding one tweet. Okay, just very simple, one tweet. Okay, what's in a tweet? We can break down our tweet as for example, one main view containing the entire tweet. and then maybe one view containing this profile picture, and then another view containing all of these three highlighted, the yellow, the red, and the blue. So we can think of our app as our tweet as having one view containing two other views. So this is our initial take on how to do code this view, and then what's inside of these two views? Well, what's inside this our first view? We see that there's an image inside. So let's add an image. Let's import image, and then we can add an image. And if you remember from last week's workshop, image takes two properties. It takes a style property, and it also takes a source property, which is the important one. And the way we define it is that we can specify a URI to the image. And I'm going to just be using a random URI for this workshop. If I go to Chrome, do I have Chrome here? Yeah, this is just going to be a, I hope this loads. Yeah, this is going to be our profile picture. And the way I got this URL is I went on Google and I searched, and then I click copy image address. So that's how I got this image. So if we go back, we can just go ahead and paste this. Sorry, go ahead and paste this, and then that's our image. And do we see a refresh on our screen? No, not yet. Why? Because you need to actually style your image first before you see anything pop up on the screen. But we're gonna do that later because what I mean by styling is that you need to give the image a height and a width before it actually appears on the screen. Otherwise, it doesn't appear on the screen. So or my expo is not working. But let's leave that for now. We're gonna do the styling later. So what else do we see in our first view? Nothing, right? We see that, okay, in this view, we're done with this view. How about let's move on to this view? All right, what's contained inside this view? We see that, okay, it might contain some sort of text component, such as a header, and then it contains the content of the post. What's inside the content of the post? There's some text, some post content here. We'll call this a post content. And then there's a picture here, so we'll call this a post pic. And then there's some icons and buttons down here that we won't cover for now because it has buttons in it. So let's focus mainly on the top one. We see that, okay, so first of all, our app contains some text. So text, and then it's let's call it cat cafe, whatever. That's our profile name, and for the Twitter post. And then also it contains some content such as the post content. I'm going to copy and paste some some filler text right here. So this is some filler text. And then there's also an image. This is our post image. Same thing as the above image. We're going to specify a source, and then we do, for example, URI, and then I'm also going to copy an image. This image, get like a random image from the internet, and you'll see what it looks like when we actually do the styling. So there we go. There's our initial app done. And if we go here, we see that it renders the text. It renders the text, but it doesn't render the image. And the reason for that is because we haven't done any styling yet. So now that we've done all of this, why not let's try do our styling. So first of all, we want to style this overall container. So we'll add a styling here. Style equals to styles post container. And what do we wait? Oh, so what do we want in our post container? So in style sheets, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this. We see that perhaps that if we go back, so post container is a container that contains this entire tweet. And if we look at what's contained inside of this post container, it contains two views, right? So and they're side by side to each other, which means that perhaps we want to make it a flex box so that we can flex it in the row direction, in the horizontal direction. So for example, this is the most important one: flex direction row. Row, and then we can maybe make the line items to flex start, and then justify content, also flex start, and then width I'm going to specify as 100%. Now you guys haven't seen width 100% yet. So far we've only been coding width as and height as like a 10 or 100, but there is also something called 100%, and it just means that you're going to take up the entire width of its container, parent container. What I mean by that is, for example, if you had a view B, if you had a view B and a view A, so this is view A and this is view B. If you specified width 100% in view B, it's going to take up the whole width of view A. Can you show phone? Yeah, sorry. So this is going to be, so we've styled the container yet, which means that nothing has appeared. And then we're also going to give it some padding. Padding means we're just going to have create some space around the container itself so that it doesn't take up the edges. And then we're also going to give it a border. So then if you see here, okay, we see a border. A border is created, and also and if you see the padding in effect, it's been shoved closer to the middle. That's the padding at work. Okay, so now let's do the profile container. So style equals to styles.profile container. So this, if you notice here, is going to be this thing over here. And what do we want it to contain? Well, this is not, this won't take up much, this won't take much styling. All we need to do is specify give it some padding and make it sure that its width is 20%. So if we make it sure that its width is 20%, it means that it's going to take up 20% of its parent container. So as you can see, this is 20%. Okay, now so let's do the post content container. So content container. And again, this also doesn't require much styling. We just give it a width of 80% because we've already used up 20%. And then we also see here that I don't like how it's taking up too much space horizontally, so I'm going to give it some padding, horizontal 10. And this is just going to make sure that it stays closer to the middle. Okay, so now let's get to styling the actual images. So image tag also has a style property called style. And then we can say that, call this a profile pic. Sorry, styles.profile pic. And then if we go down here, we also see that if I made the style sheets like I do CSS, would it work the same in this example? In this example, there is some parts where it won't be the same. So style sheets is not the same as CSS, but, oh wait, shit, that's not deal. Anyways, so I just got a question saying that if I made the style sheets like I do in CSS, would it work the same in this example? And answer to that would be, there'd be some differences since, style sheets is not the same as CSS. But in this example, I think, I'm not sure, but generally, the general like shape of um, the way of the style should be the same. Um, and another note about the syntax of the style sheets. So if we see here that we're actually doing like commas. So if you're coming from a CSS background, you'll see that everything is separated by a semicolon, and um, and for example, if you do width 100%, if you did 100% in CSS, you'd only wrap it in like you won't need quotes, but um, because this is actually a JavaScript object, as um, as Eugene has said, then yeah, I guess Eugene answered the question, because this is a JavaScript object. This is a JavaScript object where we actually have to wrap like these special symbols in quotes. Yeah, so going back to our styling, remember that we got to style our profile pic. So our profile picture is not going to take a lot of styling. Remember that we just wanted to give it a size so that it actually displays. So once I do width 60 and height 60, we see that it shows up on our screen, and that's pretty good. But as we can see, all these profile pictures are circular, so we want to give it a border radius of 30, and we want it to be 30 because radius is 30, so that's half of our width and height. And so now we're done with this. Why not let's give some styling to our profile name. So if we do styles.profile name, we can this our profile name doesn't look very good right now, so we should make it bigger. And then perhaps we could make it bold, font weight bold. So notice I'm also like specifying this in quotes, just as like a normal string. And then let's give it some margin. Actually, we probably wouldn't need to get a margin. Yeah, it's okay. We don't need to get a margin. And then now that we've done with this part, let's try to style our picture, our post picture down here. So because right now it's not showing up. So post pic. And we go down here. Finally, we're done with this grueling styling. Okay, so what else do we want? We want it to take up the width of the entire container. So width 100% again. And then height. Okay, let's see what happens if I don't specify height. So I give it width 100%, and it's not going to show because we didn't give a height. Of course, I'm done. So 150. And okay, it shows here. We can also make it like have a bigger height, but then this wouldn't look very much like a Twitter post. So I'm going to make it 150. And then, we also don't want it to stick too close to the post. It's the post content itself. So we're going to give it some margin in the vertical direction, 10. And all images should be a little bit curved. So let's give it a border radius. And so, there we go. There is our Twitter post. It looks a little different from this. You see that we skipped out on the little details, but just for time's sake, I'm gonna put it on side. Yeah, just for time's sake, this is all we're gonna do. But this should give you a little bit of an understanding of how to create. Say you're creating an app from scratch and you want it to look like so and so app. This is how you would break down the app and then say, oh, how could I construct this app from the ground up? That's kind of the intuition that I wanted to give you guys today. All right, but moving on, we're moving on now. So if you guys see here that I have, sorry, where is it? This. Okay, so if you guys see here that I have my app.js and this is a tweet. This is one tweet, right? Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this. What if I wanted to create another tweet? Because we have more than one tweet, of course, in Twitter. So what would that, would I, should I copy and paste all of this code and then hard change the content of each one? No, right? That's not a very smart thing to do. And so this brings us into what we call functional components. So we can make our own custom components using React and JSX, and then we can import and use them just like any other component. So this type of thinking is from React, so it's not React native. It's not solely independent. Solely independent to React native. It's more of React thing. So just making your own components and then importing and using them just like any other component. And what does this look like? Well, say we created a file in the same directory as app.js called twitterpost.js, right? Also, creating components doesn't mean you have to create a new file, but generally we will create a new file for a new component. So I'm going to create a new file called twitterpost.js, and kind of looks like this in the same directory as app.js. And then inside app.js, we will create a function called Twitter post. Twitter post doesn't really have to be the same name as the file name, but that's generally the convention. You create a Twitter post function, and inside this function, you will just return some JSX code. What I mean by JSX code is, exactly the same as this app function. This app function is returning some JSX code, and that is exactly what I mean by returning JSX code here. So you're going to be returning some sort of text, image, view, and then at the bottom of your Twitter post.js, you're going to add this line here called export default Twitter post. Right? We're going to talk about what this means, but essentially export default Twitter post means that you are exporting your file, this function, so that the rest of the project can know about this function. And in this case, you're going to want to use it in app.js. So in app.js, we can import this Twitter post from /twitterpost.js, or you don't need this JS, but this is optional. And so this on the right is the path name to from app.js to twitterpost.js. And on the left here, Twitter post is the thing that we specified when we exported. So we noticed that we exported Twitter post, and then we can import it again from here. And then now we can use Twitter post just as any other component, right? So we can, for example, do something like in our function app, remember this is our normal function app. We have safe area view, and then we can use Twitter post just like any normal component in the markup. So another note about importing and exporting. So just now I showed you guys how to import a function and how to export a function. And this sort of export default and import something from something is the main method, one of the main ways of using code from another file in the same project. And this is true for any JavaScript project, not just React Native. So this sort of export default and import is a JavaScript feature. It's not it's not just solely it's not only it's not just a React thing. And of course, there are other ways of importing and exporting things in JavaScript, but we're not going to go into those now. For now, all you need to remember is that the syntax for exporting and importing stuff looks like this: export default my component, and then import my component from path name. Now, if we go back and see, go back here, we'll look at our app function and we realize, hey, what's this export default function thing? Well, if you thought about it, you would have realized that app is actually a component, and you can think of it as the React Native's pre-provided component that contains all other component. And at the end, we export this app, and it is going to be the thing that is displayed. And this component is going to be the final component that is displayed on our app right here. So we see that there's two different syntaxes for export default. One is putting it right before the function here, and And so this export default function app would have been the same if I had just done function app and then at the bottom export default app. This would be the same. But React Native likes to do it this way. We are going to do it this way, as we did for Twitter posts down here. Just a note about exporting and importing. Right, so let's apply this to our demo, right? We've created a function, we've learned about functional components. Let's apply this to our demo. So, if we go here, as I said, create a new file. So over here in my sidebar here, I'm going to create a new file. And I'm going to call this twitterpost.js. And in our twitterpost.js, we are going to import all the good stuff from React Native. And then following our example in the slides, we're going to create a function called twitterpost. It's going to take no arguments for now. And then it's going to return, remember, it's going to return some JSX. What do we want it to return? Well, we want it to return exactly the same thing as, sorry, I'm going to close this bar. I forgot to do that earlier. We want it to return the exact same thing as this view. So we can just go ahead, honestly, and copy and paste all of this and get rid of it. And then we paste it down here. And our styling is gone, so we've got to copy and paste the styling. And then paste it down here. And then we can go ahead and delete this. Right. So what did I just do? Okay, I just did a lot of stuff. What did I just do? I created a new file called twitterpost.js. And then I created a new function called twitterpost. And then I copy and pasted all of our code that we wrote for app. And we just copy and paste it down here. And then we moved all the styling to twitterpost.js down here. And as you can see, we haven't, our app is, our Twitter post is now gone because we've gotten rid of all of this stuff. And so referring back to what we talked about before, the way we export our component is by doing export default Twitter post. And then so now the entire project knows about our function Twitter post. And in app.js, we can go like import Twitter post from /Twitter. VS Code is nice. So /Twitter post, because / is it will go back to it refers to this file in the same directory. So we can add a semicolon just for style. Okay, so and now as we can see, we can use our Twitter post just like any other component with a little slash here. So if we copy and paste this 3 times, we can hopefully see, I don't know what this is and I'm scared to click on it. All right. Reload to connect. All right, sure, I can do that. And hopefully, after I've reloaded, we'll see that oh, yes, I have to import React from in this. I have to import React, and yeah, usually if you don't React, oh, okay, never mind. So as you can see, instead of just copy and pasting all of this code, we have just exported it out, and then we can just copy and paste this little tiny line here, and we can have a bunch of posts that looks a bit more like a Twitter feed, but not really, because all of this content is the same, right? If you notice, all of this content is the same. So what happens if I want to change up the content of each Twitter post? Because remember, as I said, every tweet should be independent of each other. And even if you change the content of one, it shouldn't change the content of the other. And this is clearly not what's happening here. So if I wanted to make a tweet with another, with a different content, do I have to go like function, copy and paste this function, call it Twitter post 2, and then export Twitter post 2 and import Twitter post 2? No, right? This is where props come in. props come in, we're going to go into props and how this is going to solve this problem that we have. But first, we're going to have a bit of a poll. I want to see. Oh, I'm not doing very well on time wise, but we're going to do this poll anyways. But before we do the poll, I have a little bit of I have a little exercise for you guys, and that is so this is a screenshot of ACM hacks, one of ACM hacks Instagram posts. Hoff8, please, yeah, please go to this event. This looks like a cool event. Yeah, Jody, you're right. So I just want you guys to just drop in a chat. What sort of components do you see in this Instagram post? So just as we did for, the Twitter app, just as we did, and we broke down the Twitter app, and we broke it down into its components. What sort of components do you see in this Instagram post? And, if you see something, just drop it in the chat. Jody has started us off. Text, good. Yeah, I definitely see some text over here. Image, yes. Yeah, this is an image. If it isn't an image, then I don't know what it is. Ivan Ma, a hype event. Yes. Instagram may have just created a component called a hype event. That is true. Image, anything else? What are these? What are these little things down here? Button, yes. Status bar, good. Yeah, so I think you guys have just mainly got the point, so these are buttons, and then, but these are also icons. So these are icon and buttons combined into one thing, so you can click it. So it looks like an icon and it clicks. But you guys got the image, and text, so that's good. And you guys also missed out view and safe area view, which, we don't really see a safe area view, but we definitely see a view. But that's good. See, so that's the type of thinking that I want you guys to get into. But so now we can move on to the poll. So this is how I create a poll. All right, launch poll. Okay, it seems that there's a poll right now. Tell me if you don't see a poll popping up on your screen. Scroll view, Ivan Ma. Oh my God. We're gonna take maybe 3-4 minutes, maybe even less. It's just a very short poll, just to check up on you guys and see how you guys are doing. Okay. For the second question, I see that, many of you have answered so much work, and I agree, there is so much work to do. Week 4 is rolling around, and it's midterms week. God. Alex, tell us a joke. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not as entertaining as Eugene. I'm sorry, because I don't have any jokes in my arsenal. If you want me to tell a joke, we can talk about. Actually, I know I don't have a joke, but Nare, hit us with your whale joke. I don't know what that joke is. Okay, it has been 3 minutes, so I'm going to end the polling here, and I'm going to share results. Nare's joke will have to wait for later. Share results, and we see that the majority of you have answered export default boop without the curly, not with the brackets, and some of you did answer with the braces, and unfortunately the correct answer is the majority, the one with the majority, which is 61 with the 65%. And well, the reason why is because, as you see here, if we go back, to the slides, actually, the slides will be easier. If we go back, you see that the syntax for exporting is actually without the curly, the little brackets. And even though we've defined a function, and even though this function, when we first defined it, we have these these brackets. When we export it, we actually don't need these brackets. And the reason why is, well, we can, it's a little complicated, but yeah, that's it. And as you can see here, even though this is a function, we've actually imported it without the brackets. So, and we've used it without the brackets. So it goes to show that we don't actually need these brackets. And we only need them when we first define it. And yeah, so that's it. We're gonna move on to props. Thank you for filling out this poll. We're gonna move on to props. So what are props, right? Not the theater ones, but what are props in React? So props stand for properties in React, and they are used to pass in data from one component to another. So, if you think about what we've been doing, we've created a functional component. That is a function. When we create a functional component, we've created a function. And, in any normal programming language, you can pass arguments into functions. So why can't you pass arguments into functional components? That's like the main thinking, right? That's the main gist of what we're trying to do. So so if you think of an analogy, such as, let's say we had a function called say hello, right? And then this say hello takes in this argument called name. And the fact that we did name.first and name.last over here, it means that name is an object with the member variables first and last. So what this function does is quite simple. It just console.logs hello, first name, and last name. So if we called this function with a different argument, we would get a different output every time. So say we did say hello with this object with member variables first as Miles, last name Wu, it would be hello Miles Wu. And same for Nare. These two were our two presenters last week. So, this is the argument for functions. Why can't we do this for functional components, right? And it turns out we can. It's using something called props. But what does props actually look like? So, if we go back to our code, or if we see here, we'll see that this is how we define an image. This is how we show an image. It takes in something called the style property and a source property. And it actually turns out that what we've been doing this whole time is using props, because style is a prop and source is a prop. So we've been using props without actually realizing it. And this is how you can pass data into properties from one component to another, or if you like it, from one parent component to a child component. If you don't understand that, it's fine. We've seen that we could pass in data through this prop style and pass in data through this prop source, and then so we can think of it so that let's say this image under the hood, it'll be taking in the styles, it'll be taking in the source, and be doing its own fancy things using this prop, and that's how it uses our data to generate what we see on the phone screen, So, we've seen how to use them, but how do we add props? How do we add props to our custom components, right? Our custom functional components. Well, so let's say that we had a Twitter post in our app.js, just as we did just now, and we wanted to pass in some props to it. So let's say that we wanted prop 1 to be blah, 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 and prop 2 to be uwu. How do we use it? How do we get access to this prop 1 and prop 2? Well, in Twitter post.js, we have to specify an argument here called props. Now, props could be named anything. It could be named name. It could be called meow. Wait, why did I say meow? Okay, never mind. So it could be called props, but generally people call it props. And in this case, prop will be an object that contains the member variables prop 1 and prop 2, which is why we can then do props.prop1, just as we did name.first, and props.prop2, just as we did name.last. And remember to use the curly brackets here, the curly boys, because as we talked about in our second workshop, this is JSX, so we do need to be, and since this is a variable now, we have to wrap it in curly braces. So now we will expect our Twitter post over here in app.js to say blah, 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 and uwu. So, this is how we add props. So why not, let's give it a try, right? So in our Twitter post, remember, we can think of our Twitter post. I'm gonna pull up the phone. So we can think of our Twitter post as having 4 things that we need to customize. So one is the profile picture. So let's say profile pic equals to some link, right? And if we go back, we see that, okay, this is what we want it to pass in. We want the profile picture to look like this. And then what else do we need to customize, right? We want it to have our own profile name. And that would be Cat Cafe. And then we need it to have its own post content. And this can be copy and pasted from down here. And then over here, and then finally a post pic, right? The little cat here. So yeah, so this is what we wanted to do, right? We wanted to ultimately be able to pass in all of these things, and it will generate it dynamically, right? So I'm actually going to go ahead and copy and paste something from the README because I don't want to write all of this out again. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste all of this, and we see that. So this is just examples. These are this doesn't actually look. These are different images, and it's going to look different. But ultimately, these are just images I found on Google Image. So yeah. So what do we do here? So remember that in our slides that we have what we need to do in our Twitter post is to specify a props argument. And after we've specified a props argument, we can go ahead and change all our hard-coded things. So remember that props is now an object, and object, oh, it's going to throw an error, of course, but props is an object, and objects, and has the member variables, profile name, profile pic, post content, and post pic. So so now we can just do props dot, profile pic. So, we notice that this is going to throw us an error, and that is because we have a curly braces here. And this, brings us to the question that Josh has in the chat. Why do sometimes we need curly braces and sometimes we don't, right? And so to answer that, oh, and we see that it's changed. Yeah, so the profile picture has changed. So to answer that, sometimes we need curly braces if we're using a variable. So as you can see here, we don't need a curly brace because we've just hard coded a string. So if we just did let cat caf equals to the string cat cafe, then in here we would need to, because this is JSX, we would need to do we need to wrap it in curly braces. But then since this is a hard-coded string, this is just a string, we don't need curly braces in this case. And the reason why we don't, this threw me an error if I had curly braces here, is because I already have curly braces here. So you see that source equals the brackets, and then we have a curly braces here. So this is already inside of JavaScript code. So since we're already inside of JavaScript code, we don't need to have curly braces again because we're already inside JavaScript code. So you can think of whenever you have a curly brace, you can just think of, okay, inside here is going to be some JavaScript code, and that's all you need to know. And after you know that, then everything comes more easily, and you'll be able to understand more clearly what's going on because, yeah, you're welcome. So, let's go ahead and change all of this. So we've changed profile pic, and we see on the right here that, okay, profile pic did actually change. All right, so let's go ahead and change the other thing. So what else do we need to change? A profile name. So we need to change the profile name. So where is the profile name? Cat Cafe here. So instead of doing Cat Cafe, we need curly brackets because we're not yet in JavaScript yet. Now we're in JavaScript code. We do props.profile name. Yeah, so this should be, so now we've seen on the right that, Cat Cafe has changed to Cat Cafe. Oh, well, I guess that didn't change. And then, the Koreaboo name has changed and anime art has changed. So now all we need to do is change the post content. And to do that, again, we need a curly bracket. So props.post content. And then for the image URI, we do the same thing as we did above, no need for curly brackets, and just do props.postPic. And then we do the magic save, we'll see that, oh, all the images have changed. And this actually, so we've managed to customize our, make our functional component such that all we need to do is pass in these arguments, and then we're done. We don't need to do anything else, and we've managed to change. We don't need to copy and paste any more times. We've solved our initial problem of having to copy and paste a bunch of code by using props and by using functional components. So look at how clean this code looks, right? Instead of copy and pasting this hard-coded segment of code, all we need to do is just Twitter post and pass it in. So this is essentially what React is. React is all about doing this kind of thing. And it is all about, shortening every post. So, if we go back to here, so this diagram now makes so much more sense, right? When I went back, it's so annoying. Okay, so if I went back, you see that we've labeled tweet 1 and tweet 2. We can now actually, see why this is called tweet 1 and tweet 2 because it corresponds to a Twitter post component, and that's the, and so that's, we could instead of coding everything in its bare bones components, we can group everything together, all these components, into a single component, and then call it with different properties every time. Yeah, so all that's left now is to make this thing scroll. So we don't have, as you can see, we don't actually have scrolling. The scrolling doesn't actually work right now because we haven't used the flat list yet. So if we go back to what flat list looks like in session 2, we'll first need an array. So we define a content list equals array. And this is going to contain all our content. So let's give it an ID of 1, and then we can copy and paste all of this down here. And you'll see that it throws errors, but that's okay because oh god. Also, fun fact: if you want to change in any good code editor, if you want to change multiple lines at once, all you need to do on Windows is Control Alt and then down arrow key, and you can type on multiple lines. So in this case, I want to backspace twice to fix the line. I know this is the way I'm used to. I know there's better ways to do it, but yeah. So now we need to convert this into an actual JavaScript object. So let me just quickly get rid of all these equal signs and add some commas. so that this looks this looks like an actual list. And so this is our first item in the array, and as we can see, it's identical to what we defined here with an ID. So I'm going to go ahead, again, this isn't a README. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the rest of this array because this is really tedious. I don't want to write this all out again. So as you can see, this is the same as what we did just now, plus an extra little an extra little thing here. So and then now we can go ahead and get rid of this. There's a question, could we just do an array of Twitter posts like we put the extra Twitter posts in the array? Yeah, we could. And then you would be using scroll view to do that, which is not what we want. So we want to be using flat list, and the most recommended way of using flat list is to create an array with all the data like laid out like so, because say you wanted to create a new post 5, like all you need to do now is just to create a new object and specify the content. Whereas if you wanted to create another Twitter post, if you do use your method, you would have to create a new Twitter post such as this, and then do all of this blah 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 down there. So which is more extra coding and extra space. But then it's also like, if you're not familiar with the code base, for example, if you're not familiar with how to create a new Twitter post, this is so it won't be as easy to create a new post. So this is how we usually do things. And it's easier to create this an object in JavaScript than a new component. Yeah, so yeah, please don't use scroll view in your final projects. Yeah, so now if we remember how to use flat list looks like this. We have a flat list, and then it takes in some properties, or props as we can call them now. First is called data, the data prop, and that is the array that we're going to pass in. So content list. And then another prop is the render item. So what's actually going to be rendered? And this will take in a a function that takes an argument called object. And what it's going to do is it's going to return a new Twitter post with profile name as object.item.profile name. So if you're not familiar with why we have object.item, you can refer to previous week's workshop. And then, oh yeah, also, I mean, I've copy and pasted this profile handle thing. This is, you can just ignore it. It's not anything. This is something that I initially went out with. So when I first made this demo, I made it so that, you can also have a profile handle on the side, like here in the profile handle, like an @ but then, I realized that, we don't really have time for that. So, and as you can see, I'm 8 minutes over time. Jody's not going to be happy. So, so now we can do profile handle. We don't need to do profile handle. Sorry. So profile pic, and that's object.item.profile pic. And then similarly for post content, object.item.post content, and then post pic. So so we do this. I say yeah a lot in case you guys didn't know. So and also we need to do another thing for flat list. We need to specify another component called key extractor. Otherwise, Expo will throw this failed child context type thingy error at you. So key extractor equals to item equals to actually item equals to return item.id.toString, right? So yeah, and it won't throw this error at you. And if we save, we see that this can now scroll, and we have our Twitter-like looking feed, or a Twitter feed, if you will. And that's so just to review what we just did, we placed everything into an array, and then we've created a flat list, and this flat list will render a single for every item, for every of these objects in the array. It will render or I use the word render, but render means just to, for now you can think of it as display. I think Jody will talk more about render, but it just means it will display a Twitter post with the arguments, with the props, and it will also pass in the props that we've specified, in the objects, in the JavaScript objects here. So, and because it's a flat list, we are allowed now to scroll around. And as we can see, this is really nice. I'm kind of addicted to this, but yeah, that's it for my part of the demo. We created a Footer app, and if you're ever not sure about what we did, or you forgot about what we did, or you want to go back and look at it again, all of the code is in the README. And yeah, so, and if we see here, this is in the README. This is the README. It's got all of the code, and this is sort of like a better version. So this is what we see here now. And when I first originally coded it, it looked a bit more like this with like the icons and everything. But yeah, we don't have time for that. So yeah, so that's it from me. We have now a break time, I believe. A bit of a break. I don't know if we'll get a break now because I'm too slow. Oh, okay, never mind. So come back at 7:17. Yeah, so that's a quick break. So come back 7:17. You guys take a break. We went through a lot, so get some water, go to the restroom. Thank you for having me. Yeah. All right.
Thunderous applause. All right, awesome. Okay, and just to double check, can everyone see my screen okay? Yes, awesome. Okay, so welcome back. Give me 1 second. All right, welcome back, everyone. This is now part 2 of session 3. My name is Jody again, so let us get to it. All right, so part 2, this is what we're going to be covering now. So spoiler, we're going to be covering 2 main things. One of them is new concepts. So one of the new concepts we're going to be learning today is something called component state. And this is going to be using a special function called useState, so we'll get into that. And then we'll also be covering a few new components that you might find useful. One of them is button, touchable, opacity, and then the next one is text input. Yeah, so 2 things, main things in the second half. One is just one new concept, and then 2, some new components that you might find very useful. All right, so let's get to it. So first, we're going to start off with a button. So we have already looked at a few apps. Buttons are very useful. Buttons are actually part of React Native, and they provide them to us. So the syntax looks something like this. You have a button component. And what's special about this button component that React Native provides to us is it has some very specific props, predefined props that we can use to sort of customize this button. So one of them is this special property called onPress, and all it does is it take in some function. And we're just going to call this function whenever we press this button, right? Because you usually press a button and then something happens. We'll get into a little more of some examples of what that looks like through our code demo. But for now, just know we have a special function we can call through onPress. We have something called the title. Title takes in a string. It's just what the button says. So if you have a button that says press me, or one that says don't press me, or I dare you not to press me, you can put that there. And then we also have the color. Say you want, like, I don't know, pink, purple, whatever color, you can also add a color to your button. And then there's more properties, and I've linked them on the README. So if you're wondering, oh, what other cool properties that buttons can use, that's also there. So it'll look something like this. This is a pink button that says press me. If you're on an iOS device, so this was taken on an Android device. If you're on an iOS device, the button will look more like the iOS default buttons. This is what the Android one looks like. All right. So buttons are really useful. In fact, like if we just look at any 2 apps, this is like my Messenger app. This is also my Instagram app. We see buttons everywhere. Like we've got these back buttons, these call, everything that we click, there's something that happens, and that's a button, right? And I'm pretty sure in like this Instagram, there's probably like 14 of them. There's a lot. So look at all those buttons. But hold on, these are like button icons. Hold up. These are icons. Oh my God, didn't we say that this button component has to take in a string of text. Like actually, if you put in something else, it's going to throw an error and it's going to be mad. So we have all of these like buttons here that are just like not text, which is just not helpful, right? Actually, I don't even think I see a single button here that really isn't text. Like most of these are icons. So we're actually gonna have to use a different component for most of our apps. So most of the time you won't actually be using buttons because it only takes in a string. You're gonna be using, buttons are a total scam. I'm gonna pause for a dramatic effect. Yeah, buttons are scam. All right, so we're gonna, instead of using buttons, we're gonna use touchable opacity. So the reason why we introduce buttons is because it's like a very intuitive name, but most of the time we're gonna be using something called touchable opacity. It's basically the exact same thing as a button, except it acts just like a view. So if we look at this, we have this opening tag and then the closing one here. It acts like a view with this special on press thing. So remember I said button, when you press it, you can do something and has a function that it'll call. Touchable opacity has that too. But you can put anything inside of it, just like any other view. So for example, you can put text here. If you wanted to put an image or an icon, as we saw on the Instagram screenshot, there's lots of icons. You can also put that there as well. So we're actually going to be using something called touchable opacity. Okay. Let us actually get into a demo of what this looks like, just so you guys can see this in action. So I'm going to pull up VS Code and my phone. Okay, so what I did here was I just ran expo init and then the name of my project. So I called it session 3 demo. You can call it whatever. Also, remember, don't code along for this workshop. Just to get this up conceptually. I already typed this. If you type this, if you click enter, it takes like a really long time. So also fun lesson is if you're doing an expo project, like init and then like go drink water, or, I don't know. It takes a long time. So I already did it. Saved it in S3 demo. I'm going to open it in VS Code. So if you just need a refresher, you just go to open file, open folder. I'm going to find it on my desktop because that's where I saved it. Session 3 demo. Okay, so we're going to open up the code. Awesome. All right, so we have a few apps here, or apps. We have a few files here. Let me make this a little bigger as well. Okay, is that font size okay? Anyone need it larger? Okay. Yes, there's a folder called Love of My Life, Raji. Yes, that is there. Okay, and so to start our app, we just type expo start. All right, and so what this is going to do is that this is going to open a tab in my browser. Reminder, I'm like not actually doing anything right now. It's going to magically open a tab in my browser. So if I go to my browser, if it starts, there we go. It magically opened a tab in my browser. And what I'm going to do is I'll show you guys my phone. So I'm going to open up the Expo app on my phone. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to scan this QR code to get started. So we scan the QR code. I know you guys got a sneak peek of the corner of my desk. Super exciting. All right. And now it is, okay. And now it is starting our code. So on my phone, it says downloading. Here, let me show you. It's really small, but it's basically downloading the code and we'll get started soon. Failed to connect with the, oh, you know what? I should turn off the debugger. Hold on. Can I do this here? Reload the app. Okay, please build. Okay, it is building. Slowly. All right, so while it builds slowly, let us sort of get into our code. Let me pull this up. I'll just once in a while double check. Yeah, so this takes a little bit to load, but we can see it sort of going at the bottom. Does anyone have any questions before we start while this is running? Has everyone's day's been all right? It's been a long week. Midterms are hitting. Times are tough. Okay. So it looks like it's at 77. We're almost there. 80. We're almost there. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I had dramatic music to play. I unfortunately don't. Okay. Oh, how did you do the React Native debugger? So if you like shake your phone when you're doing this, there's like a debugger. There's a button that says, I wonder if you can see my mouse. Yeah, stop remote debugging. Or yours is going to say start. I'm actually going to hit stop because I don't want it. But if you need the debugger, that's there. All right, so cool. We've got our fancy schmancy default app. So just to know that this is actually connected, let us actually type some text. I don't know, like poop or something. Oh, okay, there, it's loading. Awesome, we know everything's working. All right, so let's actually make some buttons just to practice. And to practice what Alex just taught us, we're gonna put this in a new file. So let me pull up my thing so I make sure I'm not forgetting anything. Awesome. Okay. So I'm actually going to make a new folder for organization. So I'm just going to click new folder and I'm going to type components. So these are just my custom components I'm defining. To put a folder inside, I just click this components folder and then I add new file. I'm going to call this, I don't know, state play. Oh, well, it's going to be called, we're going to use state later. Okay, well, for now, we're going to call it button playground. Button playground.js. And in here, we're going to start defining my own custom component. So at the top of every component, we always have to type import React from React. If you're tired of typing that, I apologize. There's not much I can do. Okay, then we're going to import some components that I know we need. So import, I know for sure I'm going to use a view, a button, and some text. And definitely a style sheet. And if you're wondering, how do you know what you're going to type or what you're going to use? It's because I've coded this before. So yeah, okay. Import from React Native, native. All right, then we're going to define our component. So function, because my file is called button playground, I'm going to, by convention, name my function the same thing. So button playground. And okay, and then we're just going to return, let's return a view. Oops, I can spell. All right, review. And for now, just as a placeholder, I'm going to put some text that, so I know it's here. So I don't know, Alex is cool. And also remember, we have to export this so that our other file can use it. So export default button playground. Awesome. Oh, that's okay. Oh, did I just copy something? That's really embarrassing. All right. Export default button playground. So if I look at my app, I'm like, oh my God, it still says poop. Sorry, that was a poor choice of word. It doesn't say Alex is cool. And if you're like me, sometimes you might kind of go crazy, like, why isn't it showing up? And it's the answer is you didn't import it and render it in app. So that's a big mistake that I always make. Don't be like me. All right. So import button playground. And then the path to this is in the components folder. So if I go here, we see components. It's in this component folder. Button playground.js is the file. So component/button playground. All right, and then let's just get rid of this text poop and this status bar. I don't really need this status bar. All right, and then let's type button playground. All right, if we look here, Alex is cool, awesome. We know this is working. So let's actually write some things in here. First, I'm going to put, let's try some buttons just because that's the simplest one we learn. Let's give it a title. The first one, let's say it's pink. This button will be pink, and then we'll give it a color, which is pink. If I save that, we should see a pink button. Let's add another one for fun, button. Let's try I don't know, a purple one. Title equals purple. Purple color equals purple. All right, and if we save that, awesome. So you got a pink and a purple button. So if I click these, you can't really see much happening, but there's not much that happens. So remember, there's going to be a function that we can take in called onPress. And it's just going to take in a function that does something. For now, I'm just going to write an empty function, just because we'll define what it does later, but it's going to take in a function to call, let me do something. Yeah, this is really bare bones function. It takes in no parameters and it also does nothing. So yeah, so if I click it, nothing happens because we're not doing anything. All right, so we got this pink and purple button, but I don't like these buttons. I don't like text. So we're going to put an icon in a button instead. So for that, I'm going to want a touchable opacity. So first, let me import it. Don't forget to import your stuff. All right. And then we're going to make a touchable opacity component. It acts just like a view. So there's going to be 2 of them, an opening one and a closing one. Opening right there, closing here. Okay. And I want an icon inside. And if you're like thinking, how do you put in an icon again? Honestly, I don't remember either. So we're going to go Google it right now. So what another fun thing is you just go expo icons. Ooh. Yes, please leave. All right. And then you go, oh, wow, look, what is this? Icons.expo.fyi. Oh, look, I can search for whatever I want. Let's search up a heart. Okay. Oh, there's some cute hearts here. So I'm just going to pick one of these. I'll pick the second one. And look, it tells me exactly what I need to do to get this component in my code. So looks like I need to import this ant design from @expo vector icon. So let's just copy that text. We'll put it at the top of our file. And then to use it, we have to actually render it, the component just like this. So we're also going to copy that. And we're going to put it inside my touchable opacity. Okay. Oh, my phone is gone. There's the phone. Okay. And we see this tiny, teeny, tiny heart. Okay. So I don't like it that small. So we're just going to, let's just make it a little bigger. So let's make that, I don't know, 48 or something. And then it's also black. I'm not a huge fan. Let's also make it pretty pink because it's a heart. Okay, there we go. So we have this pink heart that says Alex is cool. And if you wanted to add styling to this, let's add some styling. So first I'm going to say Alex is cool to tap heart. And then let's also put some text below that says like, I don't know, heart counter 0. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to style this real quick just so we can see it a little better. So to do that, all I type is const styles equals, what is it, style sheet dot create some styles. Let's do the heart counter text. So heart counter equals, not equals, heart counter equals, let's say text, or font weight is what I'm looking for. Font weight is bold. Let's also just do font sizes. I don't know, some bigger number, 18. And then if you're also like me, again, going, why isn't it being applied? Because I didn't apply it. So style equals styles. Oops, styles dot, what did I call it? Heart counter. Okay. Yay. Okay, I'll make that text a little big so you guys can see. All right, but yeah, we got some styles going. I also want to just center this button to make it look nice. So I'm gonna apply it to this container view. So I'll make a thing called styles.container. And then let's actually define it here. Not there. Here, container. Add the comma. Okay. And then let's see, it'll probably, I think it's align items, center. Enter. Hey, yeah. And if you looked right now and just saw that the buttons got thinner, all I can tell you is that sometimes when you change flex properties on, especially buttons, because they come pre-styled, like I don't know, they pre-style this button to have a purple. Well, I'd specify purple, but like a shape and a size. Sometimes it'll mess with the dimensions. For now, don't worry about it. It's not the purpose of this workshop. But yeah, so if I tap the heart, you can actually see it like go light pink. Yeah, I'm tapping with my finger. All right, so this is really cool, but this is boring because all I can tap is this button and it does nothing. So why don't we actually make a counter? Why don't I use this button and increase this number to 0 here? Okay, so before we get into that, we're going to introduce a new concept. So let's go back to my slides. All right. Okay, so we're going to go into a brief journey into React rendering. And I feel like, what is that fancy word? It just means drawing components on the screen. So how React shows the component. So when I say render component, it's just React showing it to you. It's sort of drawing it on your screen. So fancy word for that, rendering. All right, so updating the screen. So whenever a component changes, React must re-render or like redraw the component to show the new data. So for example, if you've ever seen like, on Instagram or something, you see like a like count increasing, or you see like any sort of like comments being added, that's React being like, oh, I got new data. I'm going to show it to you. Like I have to redraw everything so that it shows you the updated data. So that things that like that include passing in a new prop. So remember when Alex was typing in props, it would re-show the new prop because React goes, oh, a new prop is being passed in. We're going to re-render. We're going to redraw it so you can see the new stuff. So pretty easy. You're like, okay, so let's think my like counter. I'm just going to, let's say, for example, say we pass it in a prop. I'm going to just increase it by 1. You know, props.like count, easy peasy, plus equals 1, right? Because if we get a new prop, it's going to re-render. We're going to run into a problem. It's going to throw us an error. Like if you type this code, props .like count plus equals 1, you're just going to get an error. And that's because a component cannot change the value of the prop it is passed. Props are read only. So if you're within a component and you're getting some prop data, you can't change what is in here. So doing something like this, props.like count plus equals 1 will throw you an error. And so you're like, oh, that's a setback. So this is just the same code. I just scooted it over. That's a setback. Okay, let's big brain our way out of this. I got it. Let's store this prop. Let's copy the value and put it in a temporary variable. All right, like count copy. Awesome. All right, it's so cool. We big brained it. We're not going to change the prop. Okay, so say we got like count copy, and then we've got the button here, and then inside the button, this is just some random component. It's not really what I had before, but we're going to display that value. Awesome, cool. And then I'm going to add an on press to this touchable opacity. It's going to call a function called add1. Whenever we press it, it's going to update the value. All right, so we're going to call add1. So let's define add1. So let's add this. It's really brief function right here. Const add1. Okay, function like count copy plus equals 1. And when you run this code, it's going to compile, you're going to be happy, and then you're going to click the button and it will not re-render. The number is going to be stuck at whatever it was passed in, or like whatever you started at, say 0. And you're going to be really sad. And if you do some console log magic, if you do that debugger like I tried earlier, you're going to see that the value is actually updating, but the component's just not re-rendering. It's just not redrawing the new value. So how do we get around this? We actually have a way to do this in React. And so React gives us a way to do this, and that's called state. So not avatar state, but state. I just hope this graphic helps you remember the word. But yeah, it's called state. All right, so how do we use this thing called state? So in component state, we're going to have to import this as well. So our import line at the top is going to say import React use state from React. So what is this? Use state is just a function. It's a very special function that is going to help us manage this thing. Is there a use country too? There is not, but very funny, Max. Okay, so yes, use state is a function. If you're going, what are these like curly boys? It's just special syntax, and we just want to extract this one specific function right now. So use state. That's how we import it. And how are we actually going to use this? So this is just a quick code example. It'll look like this. We're going to define it within our component. But before I go into the details, just a few notes. This must be defined inside a functional component. So whenever we use this function, it must be inside a functional component. And it must be at the outermost level. So I can't really put it in an if statement. I can't put it in a for loop. I can't even put in the return code. It just has to be in the outermost level of the function. All right, so that's just a quick aside of how to use it. So let's break down this code, because we're looking at this and going, this looks kind of funky here. So first, use state is a function that returns a 2-item array. All right, a 2-item array. What are those items? The first one is a variable that holds state. All right, that's item number 1. Item number 2 is a function that we're going to use to update this variable. All right, so where are these variables? They're right here. And what this funky syntax is doing, this is extracting the items of the array. So if you're looking at this and going, hey, this looks like an array, like I've got the square brackets and, items separated by commas, it is. So we're actually extracting each of the items and assigning them to these variables. So the first variable, count, goes right here. It gets extracted and it gets assigned to this variable count. This is a variable name, by the way, count. And then same with our second array. Oh, also, before I go on, this variable count is going to be initialized to whatever we pass into use state, right? So in this case, 0, you could do a string, an object, whatever you want. And then set count, this is the function. So we've named this function set count. We've extracted this second function, named it set count. And this is how we update the variables. So when we want to use this, we're also just going to count it, or we're going to call it very similar to how we called use state. So we're going to call this second function with the new value that we want to update our variable with. All right, so that is like kind of an overview. So let's actually get into a demo for this. So let's go to here. Okay, so we have our button playground. And I want to use state. So let me show you before, like a quick recap of what happens if you don't use state. So if I had a variable called like let's call it heart count equals 0, all right? So this is, remember, this is without state. Let heart count equal 0, and then touchable opacity is going to take in a function. Let's call it like, I don't know, increment heart count. All right, so it's going to call a function. I haven't defined it yet, but it's going to call a function to increment the 0 value. So and I want to replace this hard-coded 0 with our actual variable, heart count. So if I save it, it's going to look the same. Increment heart count. Oh, I haven't defined the function yet, so let's define it. So const increment heart count equals this. And remember, if you're seeing this like new function syntax, it's very common that within a function, if you're defining another function, you're going to use this syntax with the arrow. No, yeah. Okay, so the heart count plus equals 1. If we run this, you're gonna click on this touchable opacity, which is just the icon where I set on press to, and you're gonna go, wow, this is a total scam. It's not increasing the count. So we have to use state. So first I'm gonna import it. So at the top, I'm gonna import use state. All right. And then let's just replace this line here with how we're gonna use it. So const heart count, heart count, and then set heart count will be our function. If you're looking at this and going, why is it called heart count, set heart count? It's just convention. Normally you're going to have a variable name, and then the function, you're just going to add the word set in front. If you have a lot of state variables, it might get confusing what function is what for what variable if you don't name it nicely. So we usually by convention name it like that. And then use state. Let's set it equal to 0. Okay. And if I start this now, we see that everything seems to be working. If let's change this to something like 5. We'll see heart counter has actually changed to 5 because we initialized heart count to be 5 and we're displaying it here. So yeah, 5. So I'll change it back to 0 for simplicity. And then we're going to change this function. So rather than doing heart count plus equals 1, I'm going to call set heart count with the new value that I want. So if I set it to, I don't know, 1,000, when I click this button now, what it's going to do on press, we'll call increment heart count. Increment heart count is going to call that second function, set heart count. And this function is special because not only does it change it, it tells React we must re-render. We must redraw so we can see the new data. So if I click it now, it says 1,000. Awesome. But okay, so let's just get this to increment because I don't actually want it to be 1,000. So we'll call heart count, which is the original value, plus 1. And let us, let me reset this. So let me shake my phone, click reload. So it starts at 0 again. Okay, remind me not to do that again because now it has to rebuild from 0. Okay, we're almost there. Is that like, okay, here we go. 0, and if we click heart, the count increases. So yay, pretty cool. Let's get some more practice in with this use state. So let's say, let's make use of these buttons as pink and purple. So how about I change the color of this icon, right? The color of this icon is hard coded as pink, but I can change this to a state variable. So let's create a new variable, const. Let's call it like heart color. Set heart color equals use state. Let's just start as pink, just because that's, yeah, pink. And then we'll replace the hard-coded pink with heart color. Okay, so nothing has changed. And what happens when I press on press? I want to, when I press pink, the icon's going to turn pink. When I press purple, icon will turn purple. So let's do that. So all I have to do here, so before I defined a separate variable, or a separate variable, a function, and then I wrote the name here. But I can also just define the function directly inside of the curly braces. So I'll show what that looks like. So let's just say set heart color to pink. And then, oh, that was the purple button. Okay, well, we'll set the purple one to purple. And we'll set the pink one to pink. Set heart color to pink. So now whenever I press this pink button, it'll call this function, set heart color to pink. When I press the purple button, set heart color, button should be purple. Okay, so if we start here, and if I press purple, our heart is purple, awesome. Pink, it goes back to pink. Yay, so this works. Okay, so that is it with state for now. If anyone has questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. Okay, so let's see. I was going to do a poll, but I think we're running out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the poll and I'm immediately going to end it. We're going to just go through the answers real quick because I think it's valuable. Okay, launch polling. Actually, we'll just do a really quick poll because I really want this poll. So we'll give literally 1 minute to look at this. You have 1 minute. Timer starting now to do this poll. I feel like I should have Mario Kart music. I don't have it prepared though. Okay, so halfway there, and I'm gonna give it 30 more seconds. Okay, 10 seconds left. And we are going to end it now. Okay, so let's just look at this real quick. All right, so what is the import line that allows us to use state in a component? Everyone got it right, import React use state. All right, and then second question, if I want to set the color of this background view, I have to call, the third answer is actually correct, set color. If I call color, so remember the way we change state is not the variable equals purple, so color equals purple is wrong. We have to use the function. And then use state purple, that's creating a new state variable. That's how we initialize it. So we don't want that. Okay, that was real brief. All right, I'm gonna keep plowing through. We are almost done. I have one more thing. All right, so finally, we have something called text input. I bring up text input. This is something that you'll use a lot in apps. So whenever you see like a bar that you can type in, that's something called a text input. So that involves using state. So yay, we learned it today. We can use it. So it looks something like this. I'll get into a demo, but there's going to be a placeholder, which is just, the little grayed out text that says like, oh, type here or something. And then onChange text is a function that'll help us update what we're actually typing inside. I'll get into what it looks like. And then a value is just like the actual text is rendered. So what does this mean? Let's actually look at some code. It'll be a little more clear. So let us get to our demo. This is the last thing, and then we should be done. Okay, so button playground. So I'm actually going to make a new component just for this to be cleaner. So I'm going to make a new file and components called text input demo. So this should be pretty simple. All right, so in text input demo, import React from React. Let me just set this up. Import text input and style sheet. And I also think I'll need a view from React Native. React Native. Am I typing at 200 words per minute? I don't think that's the fastest I've gotten to. I think I've gotten up to 126. Okay, text input demo dot is the name of our function, and then export default text input demo. Okay, and then return. Return. Let's return a view that has a text input inside of it. Oh my, lots of things, lots of fun things. Okay, I'm also just gonna put text, just, I like putting placeholder things so I know what's there. So Eugene is cool, I don't know. Alex already said you're cool, so you had your turn. Okay, so I gotta import it here, import, what do you call it? Text input demo from components. Input demo. And then we're just gonna, I'm gonna comment out this one so it just doesn't clutter our screen. Let's type text input demo. Whew, my fingers are cold. Save. Well, not save yet. Save. Okay, it says Eugene is cool. Okay, good. We got it set up. All right, so let's go through this real quick. I actually have to, if you look here, I already put text demo, but it's not showing up. So let's give it some properties that will let us see it's a placeholder equals type here. Yay. And you can see this really faint type here, yay. I'm gonna add style so I can make it a little bigger. So let's say const styles equals style sheet dot create, and then we'll call it text input. And then we will put border color, or let's give it a height, a width of 100%, and then a border, or let's give it a height of 60 or something, and then a border color of gray, a border width of 1. And why does it say height is wrong? Because I forgot a colon. That's worse. Okay, there we go. And then we have to put it here. So style equals styles dot text input. Okay, everything broke. That's awesome. Can't find variable get pixel for layout size. Oh boy. Oh, that's really okay. I didn't see that. Okay, let me fix that. What is it called? Gray. Awesome. Okay, and that's not like the full width because this view is not the full width. So let's just fix that real quick too. Style equals styles. Oh, by that container. Container. Okay. And then, okay, we're almost done. Almost done. With 100%. Oh boy. Okay, they work. Yes, there we go. Okay, so I have this text input box here. If I type, I'm typing on my keyboard, but if I type your, oh, it's like putting it in already. Okay, well, it's gonna like glitch out on you sometimes. So we're going to actually determine how this works. So that's our placeholder. So we are going to use unchanged text. Actually, wait, okay, backtrack. I need state. So I'm gonna import state, use state, oh boy, state from React. And then I'm gonna have a state variable that has the text of our input box. So text and then set text equals use state. And it's gonna start off as an empty string. And then the value that's gonna be displayed is text. So if I set like this to Jakob, hi, then I'll say Jakob, hi. So that value contains what is actually being typed in here. Okay. And if I like type in now, it's kind of hard to see, I think, with the low frame rate, but it's kind of glitching out. My text isn't really going in. So how do we fix this? Let's get rid of Jakob, hi. We're going to call onChange text, which is one of the properties that takes in a function to update this. So this is like a predefined format of this function. It must take in one variable, or it's going to take in one parameter that represents the text being inputted right now. So input text, and then all we want to do is return that input text, input text, like that. Okay, so now what happens when I type, did I do that wrong? On change text return, let me check my sample. Oh, I have to call it set state. So I actually have to set the state of this variable, not return. So set state is why I love that autocomplete. Okay, set text to input text. That was the point of using state. Okay, so input text, like I said, is just going to be the text that's already in the input box. And then we're going to call set text, which is that state variable or state function, to actually make sure that value updates. So set text, input text. If I type in here now, it'll, okay, let's type like Alex, hello, there, it'll actually be typing. And recall, because text is just a state variable, I can technically use it anywhere. So if I wanted to put in this text as well, like text, whatever is above my input box, which is just a text view or component, will render like the same thing, will show the same thing that I'm typing up in here. So a lot of things you can do with this. You can make like a chat bot. For example, you can get whatever text is in here. Whenever you press like a button, it'll create a new component, pass in the text, make a chat. Actually, I made a demo of that. So if you go to the README, you'll find that. But yeah, so this is basically it for the content. Like I said, there's some fun demos on the README. So if you go to the Hacksprint README, all of this code is there. And there's also some demos. So I talked briefly about like you can make like a mini chat like app. There's a demo of that here. So if you go to, so if you go to session 3, which is today's lesson, and you go to state demo, you'll see all this code. I also put some instructions how to set it up. And I have different components you can play around with that show different things. One of them is like a simple chat app. Another one is just more fun with buttons. Another one is just a very simple one, text input. But that is, that is basically all the content that I have prepared for today. So everybody, thanks for coming so much. This was a long workshop. We just barely made it to the end, but this was fun. So next week we'll be teaching basic navigation. So when you're in an app, how do you actually like click between app screens? For example, if I click a settings button, it'll bring up settings, whatever. That's navigation. How do we do that? You'll learn about that next week. And also please fill out our feedback for our raffle. We do take feedback very seriously, so we appreciate all of the notes we get, and we go through it. We try to, improve our workshops. And yeah, that is all I had for today. I don't know if you had anything, Eugene.
Oh, I have nothing. Yeah.
Okay.
Happy we made it under 8. Thanks everyone for coming.
Yes. Thank you everyone for coming. I blasted through that last part. Oof. I was like, we got to make it through text input. Okay, but we did. Yes. Oh, what is today's attendance code? It is props to you. So
Let me type that.
Yeah, he could type it. It's also here. Props to you.
Props to you for staying, everyone.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you. I shall put on some of my study music while everyone leaves.